Hello friends, welcome to Insights ICANN Initiative. In today's video, we are going to discuss about G20 Delhi Declaration. Actually, the G20 meeting we can discuss into three parts. The first one is the G20 Declaration, and the second one is going to be the Global Biofuel Alliance, and the third one is going to be the India, Middle East and Europe Economic Corridor, Transport Corridor. So out of these three, in this video we are going to discuss about the Delhi Declaration in detail. So in the next videos, tomorrow you can expect the video on the this transport corridor between the India, Middle East and Europe, and you can expect video on the Global Biofuel Alliance. Okay. Now in this video, what components we are going to cover. So it's all about Delhi Declaration and what are the 10 themes identified in the Delhi Declaration we are going to discuss in this video. Okay. Regarding the G20, basics of G20, how G20 formed, G20 emblem, okay, G20 symbol, those already we discussed in the previous videos. Okay, you can find that video either in the playlist or I'll include that in the cards, so you can find that video. Now let's see, so how this is related to your, so in this video components we are going to discuss about why it is in news because of the G20 and key highlights, and we will also discuss about the Delhi Declaration. First we will discuss about, compared to the previous G20 meetings, how many outcomes produced in this meeting. Around 73 outcomes in terms of line of effort, and in terms of documents approved, 39 documents. Overall 1112. This is the overall work rate of 2.5 times high work rate compared to the previous G20 meetings. So Government of India is saying that this G20 is more productive compared to the previous G20 meetings. This is the first one. Now we will see some of the key takeaways from this year G20 summit. Key takeaways. Meanwhile, tell me students, in the G20 declaration, how many chapters are there? If you know, tell me. Okay, I'll explain that one anyhow. How many chapters are there in this G20? And one more thing, tell me, which are the countries proposed Global Biofuel Alliance? What are the countries proposed the Global Biofuel Alliance? Now we'll see some of the Delhi Declaration, some of the commitments. Commit number 1, okay, the effective implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. You know that 2000 to 2015 Millennium Development Goals, 2015 to 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, and how we can implement the Sustainable Development Goals. That is about the commitment number 1. Commitment 2, it is about the addressing the debt vulnerabilities of the developing countries. Okay, why the developing countries are experiencing the debt vulnerabilities, what are the financial issues the developing countries are facing. You know that India is leading the Global South in this context. So India is mainly advocating for the problems facing by the developing nations. Third one, it is about the strong, sustainable and balanced inclusive growth we have to achieve. That means it is in terms of the gender as well as it is in terms of the more environment friendly growth. Comment number 4, low GHG, so greenhouse gases and environmentally sustainable development. As a part of this, even we propose this Global Biofuel Alliance to reduce the greenhouse gases. Then the fifth one is about the prepare better for the future health emergencies, because in the COVID times, world witnessed the preparedness for this kind of pandemics, and still there are gaps after the COVID pandemic. In the health gaps were identified, and we have to fill those health gaps. Next, sixth one, accelerate the progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, and achieving that. Seventh one, it is about towards the Paris Climate Agreement. Students, Paris Climate Agreement was made in COP21. There we set certain targets to reduce the global temperature below certain level. That is about this particular commitment. Then eighth one, better, bigger and more effective multilateral development banks. This is about reforming the financial institutions. Not only we discussed about the reforming the financial institutions, even we discussed about the reforming of international organizations such as UN Security Council. Even we reformed this G20 and we welcomed the addition of African Union. You know that. Next, ninth one, promote full, equal and meaningful participation of the women in the economy. Okay, so encouraging the women in participating the economy. This is the ninth one. Next, 10th one, sustainable quality, healthy, safe and gainful employment to promote the employment opportunities. Even the Global Biofuel Alliance also, we quoted the same. By encouraging the biofuel cultivation, you can encourage the employment. We can convert the farmer from the Annadata to Urjadata. Urj means energy. 11th one, it is about involving the developing nations in the decision making process. So far, the decision making process mainly confined to the developed countries. The developing countries were not included in the decision making process. Now we want to include the developing nations in the decision making process. 12th one, improving the digital services and the digital public infrastructure. If any country require any help in terms of the public infrastructure, in terms of digital public infrastructure, India can help to them. These are some of the India or G20 can help. These are some of the 12 takeaway points in terms of G20 declaration. Of course, in next coming videos, we'll discuss about the India, Middle East and Europe corridor. Now we'll see why it is in news. India G20 summit, it ended with New Delhi leaders declaration. Previously, these declarations are used to be in the form of paragraphs. For a change, this time we changed the declaration in the form of, it consisted of preamble as well as the 10 chapters are there. We are going to discuss about all the 10 chapters in the Delhi declaration. What are those 10 chapters? It started with the preamble and included the 10 chapters with conclusion. And one of the most significant thing regarding the Delhi declaration is about the Delhi declaration did not condemn Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. So Russia was quite happy regarding the Delhi declaration. So Delhi declaration mainly mentioned about peace in Ukraine rather than war against Ukraine. They mentioned war in Ukraine. They mentioned. And the G20 declaration also mentioned that this is economic forum, not the forum for security, as well as the forum related to international affairs. So that is the reason they did not go deep into this particular Russia-Ukraine issue. And it is also mentioned that it is not time for wars. So India continued the stand what we took in the previous G20 summit. So this particular G20 summit seen as more positive to Russia and more neutral towards the Ukraine. Okay, so the main issue, actually majority of the assumptions were that this is going to be the main issue where the countries will not accept. But overall, the G20 declaration here on Russia-Ukraine, it included much longer description than the Bali declaration about the previous one, and it did not condemn the Russia, nor it also demanded for any action on the Russia. That is the reason it was seen as a positive by the Russia. Now we'll see the 10 points, 10 major chapters in the Delhi declaration. The first one is about the strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth. So this is about global economic situation where the advancing the financial inclusion and fighting the corruption. Financial inclusion is all about including the vulnerable societies. Vulnerable sections also, they should get the financial benefits. Apart from that, the countries also decided that they will implement the action plan against the fugitive economic offenders. I told you various times, fugitive economic offenders are the ones who committed economic crimes in one country and they escaped to another country. And to bring them back, G20 countries decided to adopt an action plan regarding the, action plan against fugitive economic offenders. This is regarding the first one, strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth. Second one, accelerating progress on sustainable development goals. Here this document mainly focused on how to eliminate the hunger as well as the malnutrition and collaboration among the nations related to health and deliver the better quality education. Not only this, it also highlighted the quality education and training of teachers on quality education, and it also highlighted the gaps left by pandemic in the global health system, how the world can be ready for the future pandemic and how the existing gaps can be filled. Like I said earlier, enhancing the teachers' capacity so that even the most marginalized children also, they can get the very quality education so that their future learning can be improved. This is the second chapter. And third one, Green Development Pact for Sustainable Future. It is about need of the clean, sustainable, just, affordable and inclusive energy transition. It also includes the green hydrogen, Global Biofuel Alliance and all these things. Not only that, this particular chapter also emphasized on improving of certain, skills, such as improving in the chains related to critical minerals, value chain related to critical minerals and semiconductors and related technologies. Improving these value chains, because during the pandemic time, majority of the countries suffered because of lack of semiconductors. So we wanted to improve. G20 decided to improve this value chain related to the rare minerals and semiconductors along with the clean energy. Next, fourth one, multilateral institutions for the 21st century. Like I said earlier, G20 mainly focused on the reforming of international financial institutions, mainly multilateral development banks. Not only that, G20 nations even they advocated for reforms in the UN Security Council. This was the first time in G20 meeting about mentioning of the reforms in this UN Security Council. Previously, G20 never officially admitted about the need of reforms in UN Security Council. It was the first time that G20 acknowledged reforms required in the UN Security Council. And here it also called for the developing countries, how the developing countries can manage their debt vulnerabilities. Also, it also focused about the exchange of tax related information on crypto assets. So regarding the cryptocurrencies, their taxation, that information has to be exchanged between the nations by 2027. This is regarding the multilateral institutions for the 21st century. Fifth one, technological transformation and digital public infrastructure. It is about helping to other countries to build their digital public infrastructure, and not only that, they also discussed about using of technologies such as artificial intelligence, crypto assets and digital infrastructure in a more responsible manner. Even countries should help to each other in terms of regulating the cryptocurrency, governance related to cryptocurrency. And G20 nations collaborate each other in establishing the global digital public infrastructure repository. Global digital public infrastructure repository. So it is the one which is going to host the public information among the nations. It also discussed about cyber education and cyber awareness for the protection and empowerment of children and youth. So improving the cyber education. And another takeaway point is the G20 nation advocated for the global regulatory framework for crypto assets. How the crypto assets should be regulated. We are discussing about certain mechanism to regulate the crypto assets, because nowadays crypto assets can be misused also. If you remember, the Financial Action Task Force, previously it used to mainly concentrate on money lending, money laundering, as well as terror financing, as well as financing for the weapons of mass destruction. And now it also included that it's going to focus on cryptocurrency. Financial Action Task Force. Same like here, G20 also focusing on the governance of cryptocurrency. Sixth one, gender equality and empowering all women and girls. This is regarding providing equal economic rights to women, as well as including the women organizations. And it's also about the creating full-fledged working group in the G20 regarding the women empowerment. And this group is also going to prioritize gender equality and women leadership in various sectors at different levels, national and international level. So this is the sixth topic that is under the gender equality. Seventh one, all the members unanimously they voiced against the terrorism, and they also said that so terrorism in any form must be faced, and it must be completely wiped out regarding the terrorism and money laundering, because India is also one of the country which faced a lot of issues due to the terrorism from our neighborhood nation. Eighth one, creating more inclusive world. This is about in this G20 meeting, especially with the inclusion of African Union, this represents more inclusive in nature, because Africa represents around 100 to 120 crores and 55 nations. So we added the inclusiveness, and we also expected that the G20 nations among themselves, they should improve their cooperation in terms of various areas. Ninth one, the G20 also decided that the international taxation must be very sustainable and international tax laws should be made and it must be globally fair. This is very important in the context of taxing on the social media companies. Even the like Google tax. There are certain taxes are facing by MNCs in different countries. In that aspect, this particular issue is very important regarding the fair taxation across the globe. 10th one, financial sector issues. This particular topic is mainly discussing that by 2027, the payment among the nations, that means cross-country payments, that mechanism will be more strengthened. So the cross-country payments can be more smoothened. So the financial issues between the one country and another country will be resolved. And of course, G20 welcomed the Financial Stability Board's roadmap for addressing the financial risks from climate change. Because of climate change, what kind of financial risks faced by the countries? The report prepared by FSB. Even they also endorsed the G20 and OECD principles of corporate governance. Okay, they try to harmonize the corporate governance in companies across G20 nations, so that when the corporate governance is more or less streamlined across the nation, then those companies can raise the capital easily from the capital markets. So this was the 10th one. Next, in the ending, it was also saying that from Delhi, a vision for Brazil, South Africa and US. This was the conclusion, because the next summits are going to be hosted by these countries: Brazil 2024, 25 South Africa, 26 USA. Conclusion. So G20, from last 1 year, it was a lot of euphoria created in India, buzz created in India regarding the G20. It witnessed around 200 meetings across the 60 cities in India. And this G20 is remarkably very popular by including the African Union and proposing the India, Middle East and Europe, this road connectivity, which was quite counter to the China's Belt and Road Initiative. And this is very successful even in terms of proposing the Global Biofuel Alliance. So this particular G20 is shown more democratization of diplomacy. That means more countries involved in this international diplomacy. Next, yesterday video question. Which one of the following is the best description of the Aedes micu related to what? Species of Titanosaurian dinosaur. Next question. Exercise Varuna, which was recently seen in the news, is held between India and France. Next question. Satkosia Tiger Reserve lies in which of the following states in India? Odisha, Satkosia Tiger Reserve. Next. Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. It was launched by which one of the following? Which agency launched? National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. CTAP, which was recently in news, is an initiative of World Health Organization, WHO. Next, we'll see today's video question. Today's video question. Which of the following statements are correct about the G20? So read these 4 statements and tell me which statement is right. Regarding the mains, India G20 president will be a watershed moment. It's very important. That means in her history, as it seeks to manifest the true spirit of one earth, one family, one future. As India is following this kind of principle, how can you say that the G20 is going to play a very important role in the India's global leadership? As we reach to this end of this video, let us summarize what we discussed in this video. In this video, we discussed about the success of this year G20 summit, which hosted by India. We also discussed about one of the 3 main things discussed in G20 and takeaways of G20 summit. And then we also discussed about G20 declaration, which consists of 10 different chapters, and we discussed the conclusion. This is about the detailed analysis regarding the G20's Delhi declaration.